Welcome back to another Answers in First Enoch episode. What are we on now? 32, I think it is. Wow. This will be part one of two, so 33 as well. We'll finish this. We're going to cover Enoch's prophecy of the 7 weeks of mankind. Yes, 7 weeks, not 10. And in the next video, we will address those claiming that you go back 2 chapters and misapply those weeks, which they're completely misunderstanding, as added weeks of this same period for a total of 10 weeks. Nonsense. We'll prove it. We'll explain how they go wrong. There are 7 weeks of mankind from creation to the final judgment, according to Enoch, principally. And by the way, this agrees with Daniel, Ezra, as well as really the Revelation clock and the whole of prophecy, where these all really align. You will see this is evident when we read it and just match it up to the events that are right there in each of these 7, not 10, eras, which are very clear events, really indisputable. We all know, at least roughly, when they occurred. You don't need to know the exact date to get these time frames down, and that will be very clear. There's no way to stretch this into anything else. It just cannot work. Again, we get through the first 5 days here and finish the 7, all the way through 7, plus deal with the chapters before in the next video. So we're gonna get to all of that. We're going to talk about the Sabbath, which is the word week there in Hebrew. And the word Sabbath has multiple meanings in terms of time frames. And that's misunderstood here. Both are accurate. The use of Sabbath in chapter 91 and the use of Sabbath in chapter 93. There's nothing wrong with what it says there. It's just the interpretation. Basically understanding that they're not the same time frame. They cannot be possibly. I mean, this not even remotely possible, and you'll see. You can't add, apples and jackfruit, lanka. That's a watermelon-sized fruit, in case anyone doesn't know, here in the Philippines, and man, is it good. But it's not the same thing at all. We're not talking apples to apples here. The Sabbath in one passage is not the Sabbath in the other passage in terms of time frame, and that is so clear here. You'll see. Let's open this up and get ready to learn. Open your book of First Enoch to chapter 93. Again, in the next video, we're going to go back to 91, but we're going to just do 93 here, beginning in verse 1. And after that, Enoch both gave and began to recount from the books. What books? You mean there were books in the days before the flood? Yeah, the ones that Enoch wrote for his children and grandchildren and so on. That's what he said. That's what Noah said. That's what Moses said, and we have covered that. The stupid scholar said, well, nothing that matters. We really don't care. They have no view on this when they try to overrule Enoch, Noah, and Moses. That is ridiculous. That's no Bible scholar, that's for sure. Now, they aren't Enoch, Noah, nor Moses, and why would we listen to them when they try to disagree with Scripture and the patriarchs' eyewitness accounts? How about that? And Enoch said, concerning the children of righteousness and concerning the elect of the world. Now he's teaching his children, grandchildren, and so on here, just as the angels admonished him. We covered that as well. Basically, before he would be taken a year later. He had a year of teaching in between. Taken where? Well, we covered this into the Garden of Eden. Yes, he visited heaven, but he does not reside there, nor does Elijah. And we covered the passages where Enoch tells us that. And, well, maybe we should take Enoch and Noah's word as to where Enoch lives instead of some ridiculous modern scholar who knows nothing. There you go. And concerning the plant of uprightness, I will speak these things. Now, we'll explain this plant of uprightness. This is incredible. He could not come out with a better connotation that Enoch uses here. But he uses it in two different contexts in this prophecy, and we'll deal with each as we hit it. Yea, I, Enoch, will declare them unto you, my sons, according to that which appeared to me in the heavenly vision, and which I have known through the word of the holy angels. See, the angels took him around, and they taught him basically all things. He also says, I have learnt from the heavenly tablets. Boom. That means there are heavenly tablets. And when Jubilee says that Moses was given those heavenly tablets for the account from creation to his day, which is where he got it from. He didn't just make that up. He didn't do it on fables and legends. No nonsense. He did it from an eyewitness account from the angel of the presence in heaven who keeps Scripture, period. That was given to him on Mount Sinai, and that is how he was able to write the first chapters of Genesis and Jubilees. Now, prophecy unfolds as Enoch breaks down the rest of the world prophetically back to the beginning and all the way to the day of judgment and even beyond. I mean, this is amazing that this guy saw this before the flood. Yes, Enoch knew all of these things long before Revelation, even Daniel, Ezekiel, and even Moses, and serves as their origin, along with the heavenly tablets, of course, from the angel of the presence in heaven who keeps Scripture. So basically, Enoch was the first to write among men. We covered that in the first videos in this whole series, so go back and watch those if you haven't. And he knew what would happen all the way through the end of this age of man and really beyond to the next age. Verse 3, and Enoch began to recount from the books, what books? His writings, not Sumerian tablets, which are occult, Nephilim, satanic, opposite accounts. And what an illiterate proposition to claim the Bible originates in those. Ridiculous. The Bible was written first by the angel of the presence and by Enoch long before. Enoch even mentions Gilgamesh, so he knew who he was. So, the very first ever written by man, and in basis also from the heavenly tablets. So there you go. And that's in Moses' accounts. This is inspired Scripture, folks. There's no other way to view it. We've well proven that. Read the introduction if you haven't. And said, now this gets confused, and I don't understand how on earth it could. I think many of you will read this with us and know exactly what he means here. I was born the 7th in the first week. Okay, what does he mean? The 7th what? He's the 7th child in his family? No, that's not true. Enoch would be the firstborn in his generation, in his family. So no, that doesn't work. 7th what? Well, the 7th from Adam, of course. While judgment and righteousness still endured. So this is before the days that things really ramped up as far as evil and unrighteousness increasing on the earth. Far worse. Yes, the Watchers were already in play in the days of Jared prior to Enoch's generation, but things were really ramping up in Enoch's time, and he saw things that he records, as well as the judgment of the Watchers to come, all of that. And Noah, in Noah's generation, it became even worse. So, now, what on earth could Enoch be talking about here? Really, I mean, it's amazing that we'd have to do that, but there's a new book that's been out fairly recently from Tom Horn and his emissaries. And basically, I don't know why they do this with the Book of Enoch. I guess many do it with Scripture too, where they pull out a fragment and then totally misinterpret it out of context. But we even saw one video where one author was explaining, and he's saying that seventh, I couldn't figure out what that was. How can you not figure out what that was? Then he pretends not to know how 7 can be associated with Enoch. Where on earth could it come from? Maybe Enoch was born on the 7th day. Nope, Jubilee says not. Maybe the 7th month. Nope, Jubilee says not. Maybe he's the 7th child in his generation. Nope, Jubilee says not. None of these things are accurate. And of course, he doesn't read Jubilees probably, so he doesn't know these things. But even still, how does he not know that Enoch is the 7th from Adam? Period. He's known as the 7th from Adam. And we're going to go through that. Did he just say here that these will then be, 700-year periods, for instance? I mean, where on earth is that anywhere? Nowhere. You could see it with millennia Sabbaths. You could see it with Sabbath years every 7th year. Certainly the 7th day, every 7th day, Sabbath meaning 7. But 700-year periods, nowhere to be found here. That doesn't work. In fact, it wouldn't work if you look at this timeline, as we'll go through. So no way. But is this really that difficult? Not even slightly. How does Enoch refer to himself with the number 7 and others around him, such as his grandson, Noah, as the 7th? The 7th what? Well, it's always in one context, period. And only one. There's only one. That's it. There's nothing else to discuss here. There's one option. That's it. This is no enigma. It's no mystery, as this new recent book suggests, trying to attempt to dating by basically forgetting that Enoch is the 7th from Adam and then reinterpreting it to mean something else, which is not established in any way. This is precedence they can't overrule to change dates. And this is why their date comes out wrong. But, I think they have it, I don't know, if I remember, it was something like 50 years in the future, but, and we find it about 100. Does it matter 50 or 100? Frankly, folks, it doesn't. Get ready. That's the real point. There's nothing wrong with their book from that standpoint. It just, we find differently for this reason. We have basis for our interpretation of this. They do not. They just guess. They take it out of context. They tell you to take it out of context even, and then totally redefine something that you can't redefine. Not things like this. In fact, let's start with Noah's words. In 1 Enoch 60, verse 8, we covered this in our video, Duodein. Watch that. Check it out. But Duodein is on the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell. That means Enoch lived there before he was taken, and we're going to see that. That means Noah lived there. That's where the ark was built. It's where Adam was created. It's where Adam and Eve were exiled to because they were exiled to the land of their creation, according to Jubilees. It's all very clear and simple when you pull it all together. And this record's always been there. It's just been obscured and censored in the modern church, who likes to play in willing ignorance, unfortunately. Hey, Peter said that, not me. Where my grandfather was taken up. Who is that? Well, his grandfather is Enoch. Go look at Genesis, and it's very clear that Enoch was Noah's grandfather. Great-grandfather, yes, but that's the one that was taken up. So nothing to discuss here, right? So we know this is Enoch. What is Enoch known as? The 7th from Adam. Boom. The first man, which Adam? The first man who Yahuwah of spirits created. So basically, the 7th generation from Adam. He even clarifies, and in that case, I'm applying our modern definition of the word generation, not Enoch's, because he doesn't really use it in that sense. In fact, he says the 7th from Adam here. This is from the book of Enoch, even though this part written by Noah. Basically, this is the 7th invoked when Enoch says the 7th from, in this passage. It's the 7th from Adam, period. He's talking about he was born in the first week. He was born in the first 1,000 years, in the days of Adam. Adam lived 930, so almost just shy of a full day, Remember, a day is as 1,000 years to Yahuwah. We get that from Psalm, Peter, and Jubilees, Jubilees being the origin of all of it. So, would Enoch know? Well, of course he would know, and we all know. I mean, this is not a mystery. Another we've covered before, Jubilees also quotes Noah, that's Moses writing this, as the seventh from Adam. No mystery here. Even the New Testament, Jude 1:14, tells us Enoch is known as the seventh from Adam. There you go. And a quick, basically, reference to Genesis's timeline from basically any timeline out there of the early patriarchs will tell anyone that, well, there he is from Adam. Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. For a reputable ministry to pretend they don't know what the seventh is in this time frame that Enoch's talking about is just escapes us. But let's be clear, this timeline begins with the first 1,000 years. Again, why? Because that's the time of Adam. He lived almost that full 1,000 years. He lived 930. As this will prove out to be a 1,000-year period, basically, and nothing else. So Enoch was born the seventh from Adam in the first 1,000 years, about 522 a.m. Anno Mundi from creation, according to Jubilees. But you will notice this timeline will crush strange doctrines out there like the gap theory very quickly. It's already sitting here crushed when you really look at this because Enoch dates the earth. Period. There's no gap. There's no thousands and millions of years before day one of creation. That is not Bible. So those claiming it are not representing the Bible. No one can read Enoch and keep such doctrine. That's for sure, nor really even Genesis or Jubilees. None of them propagate that. Enoch uses his birth as the marker here, and the rest will easily and fully define these as 7 days of 1,000-year periods, millennia, right? 7,000 years total, although it goes a little beyond it. And that's important to notice. It closes at 7,000 and just goes into the 8,000th year, 8,000th era. Just in the beginning, you'll see. And this will make sense. Verse 4, and after me, that's Enoch, after the period of his birth in era. So even makes it very clear. He's talking about himself here in the previous verse. It's really hard to miss that. There shall arise in the second week. He was born in the first week. Now we have the second week. What is that? We've progressed to another era of 1,000 years. This will prove out. Let's see what happens. Great wickedness. The Bible talks about that, doesn't it? In the days leading up to the flood, in the second 1,000 years, where wickedness, unrighteousness increases. Every imagination of their heart is evil continually. I mean, there's passage after passage that lays this out. Everyone knows this. That's no surprise. In the days of Noah, the very days that are returning today. And this is in the second 1,000 years here. And deceit shall have sprung up, and in it there shall be the first end. Now, there's a definition. That can only be the flood. We all know this. There's not another first end. There are only two in the whole of Scripture, which also says the gap theory is wrong, because there is no destruction before the first end. And that's what Enoch's saying here as well. So this first end happens in the second 1,000 years, and that is the flood. The second end will be the destruction by fire. The earth will be replenished at that point, but that has not happened yet, in case we all didn't notice. I know there are denominations out there who espouse that, but it is one of the most inept theories imaginable as well, we would have eyewitnesses of a new heaven and a new earth being remade with fire. Duh. I mean, that's a big duh. So they're stretching prophecy to try to make something work, and probably it all works toward their collection plate increasing, because that seems to be the case most of the time. And in it, a man shall be saved. Who is that? Noah. So we know who this is. We know this is the flood very clearly. And after it is ended, unrighteousness shall grow up. So after it ends, even after the flood, still unrighteousness comes back. And the law shall be made for the sinners. Now, many miss that the book of Jubilees, even Genesis really, although doesn't go in as much detail, they both define that Noah had law, ordinances, and statutes. Not statues, statutes. Let's be clear. No statues. They hated them. Did not use them in their worship, and neither should any of us. Now, we cover that in the commandments of Noah in Answers in Jubilees, specifically that Noah was given very specific law that actually equates to what we'd call the Ten Commandments in the law of Moses, very clearly, very closely. So we cover that in our Sabbath series, and we cover it very well and in detail, even with chart, in Rest, the Case for Sabbath. That's a book you can get free in ebook at restsabbath.org. The very fact Noah knew how and why to sacrifice demonstrates he had law. And how on earth can any scholar not see that? You talk about blind. Wow. Now, he said he got it from 1st Enoch, in fact, the law. How about that? So the second week is the second 1,000-year period, or age of man, and the earth, by the way, both track together. I mean, yeah, they're 6 days apart. Yes, 6 literal days. So there really is no separating the timeline of the earth and the sun and the universe from the time of man, period. The first end is indisputably the flood. He mentions Noah being saved, the great wickedness, and so on. Every imagination of their heart was evil continually. We all know these things. That's Genesis as well, and law was made even in Noah's day, as he instructed his sons in such. Verse 5, and after that, in the third week, the third millennium, 3,000 years. At its close, a man shall be elected as the plant of righteous judgment. Now, this is interesting. So at the end of 3,000 years, there will be a righteous man who will be raised up. Who is that? That's not Messiah. That is the days of Abraham. Now, how do we know that for certain? Keep reading. And his posterity, where did Messiah come from? He came from the lineage of Abraham as a fulfillment of the covenant, right? So, his posterity shall become the plant of righteousness forevermore. That, my friends, is Messiah and only Messiah. There is only one candidate for that. He's it. He's the only one that is righteous forever. He was righteous in the beginning, before creation, even involved in creation. He remains so on earth during his ministry and life, and he remains righteous in heaven today and always will. He is the righteous judge. He came from Abraham's posterity as a fulfillment of Yahuwah's side of the covenant. But he is not the marker in time here. Abraham is, right, his ancestor. This references Abraham's days. Now, this is about 3000 to 2000 BC, roughly, and we have another match. Abraham came during that period, and get this, at its close, just as Enoch predicted. Yes, Enoch knew of Abraham's coming. Imagine that. Before the flood, he knew that. He knew of Messiah And remember, he met him in heaven before the flood and already knew of his coming in the flesh as well as his ascension into heaven, and then most certainly knew of his second coming. So that full narrative is Scripture, has always been Scripture, has always been prophecy, very well identified. There was no question when Yahusha came how things were going to play out. Understand that. They knew at his coming that he would resurrect, that he would ascend, and that he would return later in time for a second coming. That is not a New Testament doctrine as far as being new there. It comes from a doctrine before the flood originating in first Enoch. Understand that. Salvation is not a New Testament concept. It started with Enoch's writing as the first among men, and you find it in the writings of Moses, the first, even in Job, really, but very definitely in Torah, in Jubilees, which is Torah as well. Again, go to the bookofjubilees.org, or bookofjubilees.org, I think it is. No, there's no "the" in the website. And you can download that for free in ebook as well, and read the commentary there and the research that we put out there in the first, 100 pages or so in the front. And that book is just a wow, because it truly vets and tests as Torah, just as Enoch vets and tests as inspired Scripture. Verse 6, and after that, in the fourth week. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. At its close, visions of the holy and righteous shall be seen, and a law for all generations during this time period, and an enclosure shall be made for them. Now, that is the law of Moses on Mount Sinai in the Exodus from Egypt. And notice, Enoch says, and he does many times, that law is the law for all generations. See that? Now that's important, because we miss that. That's actually throughout Scripture, and it's never been in doubt or in question for any apostle, for any prophet. That includes us, whom he said he wrote this book for, our age, believers in the last days. Wow. Now, what is the enclosure? You could look at it one of two ways. It is the tabernacle, which houses the Holy of Holies and the Ark of the Covenant, or just simply the Ark of the Covenant that houses the law, the Ten Commandments. That, either way, is fine. Doesn't matter. Both are enclosures, and both built at the same time. So this is unmistakable, and again, the time is perfect here. It's a perfect fit. Now, why would Enoch say at its close? Well, because the temple will soon be built, and he is describing the time of King David in which the resources for the temple were already being gathered, and the law was paramount, especially to David. Just read Psalm. It's very clear. David was a huge advocate of keeping the law of Moses. Solomon will take over just after that era closes. And remember, Solomon was holy when he built the temple. It was later that he followed his wives into pagan religions, but he was holy at that time. And the next begins, and he will build the temple, of course. So yes, throughout this era, this fits. So this is roughly the 2000 to 1000 BC era. Again, you want to reconcile calendars and come up with a different date? No, it's 1006 BC. Who cares? That's not the point, and certainly isn't Enoch's point here. He's just talking general eras here in his prophetic utterance here. None of these dates are exact, and they don't need to be. They just don't. Enoch's eras, however, are perfect. One cannot miss that this is indisputably talking of the tabernacle, or at least the Ark of the Covenant, one or the other, and the law of Moses. That's just not even something you can even question. Verse 7, and after that, in the 5th week, at its close, the house of glory and dominion shall be built forever. Now, this is funny because some will say, oh, well, forever, this wasn't forever. Hang on. Now, we have the next 1,000 years, and guess what's built then? During that time. No, not any man's house. No other house could possibly fit this. There's one. It's called the temple. It was the house built for Yahuwah, for his presence, for his Holy of Holies, to replace the tabernacle. Now, and of course, his Ark of the Covenant would be housed there in the first temple. During this 1,000 years, that temple is built. However, a few hundred years later, it's burned down, and then it's rebuilt again, all in the same period. So it is the only house that could ever fit Enoch's description as the house of glory and dominion here, which would only refer to Yahuwah and no one else anyway. I mean, we know that from Enoch. That's clear. So here again in 1,000-year periods, none other measure fits. And of course, Enoch would break down the millennia prophetically. It's a very logical, sensible way to break things down in centuries, in the case of the 70 generations, and in millennia in this case. I mean, it's so easy to see when we look at it that way. Now, we will now shift on our modern calendar dates from BC, of what they call BCE now. Well, why did they add the E? Because they err. That's why. Really, that's what it should mean, because that's what it does mean. Why on earth would they ever change the term before Christ? What difference does it make? How does that hurt atheists to continue the BC with the same definition as it's had historically? What a ridiculous way to operate, and it's very clearly they hate him. That's why. They can't stand him. That's why. And unfortunately, they will pay the price for that. So we made it through what becomes 5,000 years so far of history. Again, when you go through all of this, and then you can go back and you can test it and see that it works out, even calendar-wise, in general 1,000-year periods. Now, we'll continue to cover Enoch's historical record. That's what this is, by the way, folks. Enoch's writing history here, prophetically, but this is history nonetheless, and the Bible affirms it. So there's really nothing to discuss here. Enoch is inspired, period. So he also, though, saw dream visions, which we're going to get to in this series, which will blow your mind. And again, Enoch is writing history, even though it's future events in his time, prophetically. This aligns with his 70 generations of the age of man and the earth, which are basically the same. Again, yes, we know there's 6 days difference. We showed you last video. Enoch identifies that very clearly. Watch how this turns out, though. This is incredible. And prophecy comes to life. We have over 400 videos on this channel, one for every day of the year now, many just as profound with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos, and now 6 in Spanish to start. We hope for more, but that we don't know at this time. We also have been setting up subtitles for 20-plus languages for most of our videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list as YouTube. Well, they fail to notify often, and we will notify you ourselves at thegodculture.com. Just fill in the pop-up there. We now have alternative platforms for videos on Rumble, Odyssey, and Utreon, and our new podcast is also available for essentially all of our videos as well. All links in the description box. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture, space original. If you prefer an alternative, we now have Parler, link below. We have 6 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries. With our new release, the first book of Enoch, the oldest book in history, and you know it is, because we prove it. If you haven't, read the introduction of this book, watch the first couple of videos, and we even prove it out there in part, but really in the book. It most certainly is the oldest writing of mankind ever. We also have now launched Ophir Philippines Coffee Table Book in the US, Canada, UK, many overseas markets on Amazon, and it is available in hardcover color or softcover color there, and it is a beautiful piece indeed. Additionally, we launched the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar, with color maps and interior, as so many had requested overseas. We already have the maps in color in the copies here in the Philippines, available on Shopee. But that too is available in hardcover color or softcover color, and also still the black and white as well, if you wish, on Amazon. The first book of Enoch is available in those three formats as well on Amazon, but in black and white here in the Philippines. All books, including Solomon's Treasure, are now free in ebook. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. More coming soon. Thank you for watching. Now always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone.